Welcome to Spooky Ass Shit. I am your host, Eric Dwinells, and with me tonight, a returning guest co-host. But this is, unlike all my other guest hosts, well, not all, but many of my other guest hosts, this is your first time back. This is Aaron Cohen.
Hello. Yes, it is my... Yeah, first time back, second time on the show, yeah.
That's right.
The math tracks, good job.
Yeah, now if you remember, it was maybe a little over a year ago. Aaron was here last time, and we talked about the Haunted Mansion because Aaron is kind of a Disney expert, would you say?
I would say that's a fair assessment. Sure. I mean, what with the whole Disney blog and all that stuff, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, and you want to go ahead and shout out your blog?
Sure, let's go ahead and plug that. That is Magic and Misadventures. It's over at magicandmisadventures.com. Basically, my thoughts on all things Disney.
Very good. And we're going to get into, basically, last time we talked about the fake ghosts at Disney World and Disneyland. But this time, we're going to be talking about some alleged real ghosts at the Disney parks.
This is, so last Halloween, 2016, I wrote a post called The Spookiest Place on Earth, which was going to be kind of a fun, goofy, like different writing style. I actually wrote it almost like I was writing for the Haunted Mansions, a lot of alliteration and stuff like that. And it was all about the supposed alleged real ghosts of the Disney parks. And did a ton of research, and it was fascinating. And it was like, it's the favorite post I've ever put up on my site in over 3 years of doing Magic and Misadventures. So I'm really excited to actually, talk about it.
And we've been trying to put together a date to come in and talk about it pretty much since then.
Yeah.
But for one reason or another, we've been busy or whoever. So it's nice to finally have you here. So we're going to get into all that in a minute. But before we do, of course, we have our regular housekeeping that we have to do. First of all, one thing I want to talk about. On the Facebook page, I revealed something of a personal nature the other night. And my friends on Facebook, all the spookaroos, have been very quiet about it, and I'm surprised. So I'm going to talk about it actually on the show.
Okay.
And see if I get any responses that way. Because I sort of feel like a crazy person, but I swear to God this is happening. And when I look it up, that doesn't make me feel any less crazy. Because all the answers I get back about it are crazy. So the other night, and this has happened before, but the other night I was in bed trying to fall asleep on a weeknight, a work night. I have to be at work at 7:30 in the morning. So it was like, I think it was almost 11:30 when I finally sat up in bed and said, all right, I guess I'm not falling asleep tonight. But I'd been in bed for about an hour. But part of the problem I was having was that it felt like there was an invisible cat walking on my bed. Now, I have a cat in real life, of course, but she tends to sleep out in the living room. And I looked around and she was not there. Now, again, this isn't the first time it's happened. It's happened before I had a cat. It's happened before I had my other cat. It doesn't happen all the time, but I'd say a few times a year I get this feeling that there is a invisible cat walking on the bed, or sometimes something or someone sitting on the edge of the bed. So I said, I'm going to post about this on Facebook and see if anyone else has felt this way. And only one person responded that they had. And then I was like, I'm going to try Google searching this. So I Googled it, but I guess when you type in, it feels like there's an invisible cat on my bed, you can only really expect crazy answers.
Right.
But I was hoping for some kind of answer like it's just your muscles twitching and you feel a vibration, or there's something about the springs in the mattress, or some kind of hypnotic state when you're, in bed and trying to fall asleep or something. I didn't get any of that. It was all like, oh, it's either like a real ghost cat, or maybe you're psychically sensitive and you're feeling spirits around you, or it's your guardian angel, or it was like all this stuff. I'm like, ugh. So if you've had invisible cat experiences or something like that, write into me, spooky ass shit @gmail.com.
Is it only in this apartment that you felt this, or have you lived other places and felt it?
No, I'm pretty sure I felt it. I've lived in this apartment for a long time, but
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I felt it other places. And it's never, like, it freaked me out the first time, but it's not like nothing happens after I feel it. I just feel it, and it's like, that's weird. And usually it feels like around my feet and then like kind of up towards my side. I don't feel it like by my head or anything. I don't see anything. There's no voices attached to it. Nothing like that. But I definitely have the physical sensation of something moving around the bed.
Yeah, I got nothing.
All right. But write in and let me know I'm not crazy. If I'm not crazy. Maybe I am crazy. Maybe I'm losing it. And
Can people write in and say you are crazy?
That's, well, yeah. That's sign number one, I guess, when you start feeling phantom cats. But, you know, I mean, like, anyone who listens to the show knows that I'm, like, not down with a paranormal explanation. You know?
Right. I mean, you want to
I want to
debunk
explore
it. Yeah.
other ones first. So I'm looking for someone to tell me what's actually happening. But online, all you can find is ghost talk and spirits and angels and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Which I don't mind hearing about either, but I do want to know, like, no, but like, seriously, what's really happening here?
Yeah. I can't say I've ever experienced that, so I have nothing to add to the
All
conversation.
right. Now, see, because he kind of lit up when I mentioned it, and I thought, like, oh, he's going to say he's felt it, but that's apparently not the case.
No,
All
I
right.
remember the Facebook post, and then remember I had
okay.
nothing to add to it
That's
then
what
either.
it was. It was just recognition.
Basically, yeah.
Okay, very good. Well, you can also check us out on the website, spookyas.com, where you can find, I don't know what there'll be from this episode. Maybe some pictures, maybe some videos from YouTube, that kind of stuff.
Maybe I posted some on Spooky's Place on Earth on that blog post, so we could.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
you'll definitely find a link to Aaron's website or blog and that specific post too. So you can find all that stuff at spookyas.com or spookyasshit.com. They both take you to the same place. You can find our social media accounts there, Spooky Ass Shit, on Twitter and Instagram. And of course, you can like us on Facebook, where we'll become BFFs forever. Best friends forever. I guess.
That's how Facebook works.
Yeah. It's facebook.com/spookyas. And with all that out of the way, tell us about the ghost of, is it just Disneyland or Disney World
It's
or both?
actually.
Good.
It's
It's a twofer.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, when you've got something as big as a Disney park and something that's been around for so long, I mean, Disneyland opened in 1955, Disney World in 71. You know, obviously, urban legends develop. Obviously, stories develop, and some of those are ghost stories. And we're going to get into some more realistic, gorier stuff later. We're going to start off with the fun, kind of weird ones. So
I just want to point out before we really begin, this is my favorite kind of episode because I have 0 notes in front of me. I'm just letting the expert go, and I'm going to chime in here and there. So I'm basically taking on the guest role.
He called me an expert. Everyone heard it.
Go ahead.
All right. So let's start with Disneyland, the original park. And let's actually start with Walt Disney himself. There are stories that Walt's spirit is still in the park. And this is a story that I came across in my research for the post a while back. So, of course, Walt Disney died in 1966 in December of that year. And what you may or may not know about Disneyland is that he had an apartment in the town square, kind of right as you walk in through the front gate. To your left, there's a fire station, and above that is an apartment. In the window of that apartment is a lamp, and that lamp is always on. Officially, it is because Walt's presence is always in the park, and that lamp is always on to signify kind of him figuratively watching over the park. There are stories that suggest that maybe there's a little bit more to it, a little bit more of a supernatural angle to it. And the story that I came across talks about a custodian shortly after he died that went in to clean up, as she was prone to do, and she shut off the lamp and left. Because this was before it was on all the time. It was just she went in, she shut it off as she was cleaning. She leaves, she turns around, looks up the window, lamp is back on. She thinks she must have forgotten about it. She goes back upstairs. She shuts it off again, leaves again, turns around. Hey, it's back on again. Goes back upstairs, turns it off again, stands there, waits. The lamp comes on by itself. And there's actually a variation of the story that I found that says that she then heard Walt's voice saying, "I am still here." And she hightailed it out of that apartment, never went back.
Yeah, as you would.
Right. And since then, the lamp has always stayed on. And again, the official story is that it's, just to signify his presence. But the supernatural angle is that it's because he keeps it on. And there's been some stories that I found kind of an offshoot of that where cast members will occasionally say that they've seen like the curtains moving, almost like someone is kind of watching, and then when they look, someone backs away from the window and the curtains move when they know there's no one in there, stuff like that. So if these stories are to be believed, then Walt himself is still chilling around Disneyland, keeping up on things, which I thought was kind of an interesting one.
I would imagine if he is going to be in a ghostly form, that's where he would want to be. I mean, I guess that's only based on what I know of him, which is just that he made Disney. But I'm sure he had a much more rounded life, and maybe there is somewhere else he'd rather be.
No, I mean, knowing what I know and just the obviously just learning about him over the years, I think that makes sense. Actually, because he was there a lot. That's why he had an apartment there.
Yeah.
And he was often walking through the park and interacting with guests and all that. So, I mean, this was his baby. This was his dream, and this was his life's work. So I could imagine that if he were still anywhere, if his spirit were still anywhere on this earth, it would probably be Disneyland. This tracks for me.
All right. Yeah. On the other hand, let's not forget you are like a mega fan, though.
Fair.
So you're looking at it as a fanboy, whereas he might be like, no, it was really great the first 20 years I was dead, but after that I was just kind of like, let's check out Mexico. It's a small world after all. I want to travel around.
Well played.
Yeah. See what else is out there.
Maybe he goes on vacation. I mean, I don't know what a ghost's, afterlife is like. I don't know if they're like, some say they're bound to a certain spot. Some say they're not. Maybe he every now and again just takes a trip and he checks out Norway for a week and comes on back. And
could be.
Refreshed. So the next one, we're going to stay in Disneyland for a little while before we jump coasts. The Haunted Mansion, which, of course, is an attraction, a ride about ghosts. You go through a haunted house. So you think, hey, all the ghosts are fake. Supposedly that's not the case. Supposedly there actually is at least one ghost. And many people have reported hearing and seeing a crying child. Now, as near as I could find on the backstory for this one, and again, because these are kind of urban legends, obviously there's no names. Names have been lost to time if this happened at all. But the story goes that a young boy, 7, 8 years old, something like that, his favorite ride in the entire park was Haunted Mansion, and he died tragically, and his mother wanted to spread his ashes in the ride, and Disney, of course, said no, and she did anyways. Side note, people, if you think this is a good idea, don't do that. It actually comes up a lot. Like, you'll hear people like, I love Haunted Mansion, and hey, it's really dusty and dirty in there. I'm going to spread my loved one's ashes. Okay, the dirt is all fake.
Yeah.
It's called Fuller's Earth. It is a prop dust that they spread. So basically, you would spread your loved one's ashes, and they would get vacuumed up and thrown in the trash. So if that is not the fate you want for your loved one, I would say don't do this. Also, infrared cameras, they're going to see it happen and stop it. And, just don't. Anyways, moving on. That's my little side rant there. So anyways, if the story is to be believed, then this woman went ahead and spread her dead young son's ashes in the ride. And ever since that point, people have reported seeing and hearing a crying child near the exit. But if you go up and talk to him, he just vanishes. Cast members who work the ride have claimed to see in that same area, have heard sounds, they felt chills as they walked through that area. They've seen movement out of the corner of their eye when there's nothing there. So it's possible there's a real ghost amid the fake ghosts. Again, if you want to believe that.
Here's my question. Why is he crying? Is it because he died too soon? Because he's in his favorite place, right? So you would think, like, maybe he's just... See, if I was making up this ghost story, I would say he's in the Jamboree. He's
dancing around?
Yeah, he's partying with the other spirits and stuff, or maybe, in the dinner scene. Something like that.
That's what I would do.
I wouldn't cry by the exit. What, little Yoda? You're just going to hang out with her all night? Or forever, I guess?
I mean, who knows? She's
fun for 5 minutes, maybe.
I agree with you. I think that, hey, you've got, go hang out in the attic with Constance. Do something, have a good time.
Yeah.
But, jump out of people, people are on the ride, make them think, wow, these special effects are great. And it's, and they are great. But,
I'm just saying, if you're going to be stuck there, don't just, weep by the corner. Anyway.
I don't know. I mean, I've never seen him. I've never talked to him, so I can't say what his motivation might be.
Yeah. Well, if I ever do see him, that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to be like, young man.
First question, be like,
listen,
dude, cheer the hell up.
Yeah.
It's not that bad. Go ride the ride. Have a good time.
Yeah.
Good to know. All right. If I ever see him, I'll do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'll be like, hey,
point it out.
Why are you crying? And he'll vanish, and I'll be like, holy crap, that was a ghost, and then it'll be great. So moving on from the Haunted Mansion to Space Mountain, because when I think science fiction rockets through space, I think ghosts, obviously. Mm-hmm. And this one actually has a name. They call him Mr. One Way. And the reason they call him that is because he will get on the ride next to single riders, and then he'll vanish by the end of the ride. He is almost universally described as a large man with red hair and a red face. And yeah, someone will get into a car with no one next to them. This large red-haired man will climb in, and they'll zoom off, and then by the end of the ride, he's gone. He's apparently a bit of a creeper as well, because cast members have supposedly reported seeing a similar phantasm in their locker room in Space Mountain. So he rides the ride, and he peeps on people changing.
Fun times at Disneyland.
Is
there any backstory to him, like who he might be, or
not that I found?
Yeah.
And it's in the research, you always find the occasional website speculating, like, oh, it was probably this, but there were no threads that were consistent across like one story to the next. So it was a lot of just like individual speculation, but nothing. Like one person would say this, one person say nothing, one person must say something different. So I didn't. I tended to discount those very quickly because I couldn't find any kind of unifying, like the red hair and red face thing that was unifying. Like everyone who talked about this ghost talked about that same description.
Yeah.
But
and when you say red face, do you just mean like ruddy complexion, or
That's
you
what I'm
literally
thinking.
had like a red face?
I'm thinking just a ruddy complexion because it sounds like when he would climb in the ride, people thought he was a normal person. So he obviously, if he had like this bright red face, then that would obviously look unusual. So I'm thinking it's more of he just, sunburned kind of complexion, which Southern California would make sense.
Yeah.
And he's obviously doing it right. Unlike the crying child at the exit, this guy's getting on the ride and having a good time.
And checking out the locker rooms.
Right.
So, I don't know if you can jerk off as a ghost, but
maybe. I mean, who knows? So moving on from that.
I'm just saying, if you're a ghost and you're spying on people, what's the point? Unless you can get some kind of satisfaction from it. That's all I'm saying. Carry on.
Once again, I have nothing to counteract that with. All right, yeah, let's move on. Last one at Disneyland is a woman in white who hangs around on Main Street, walks up and down the street, walks in and out of shops, wears a white dress that witnesses who claim to have seen her say seems to be from the early 1900s. There's actually speculation that the ghost was there long before the park was there, and now she's just chilling in the park because they built it around her. And I did find multiple reports that said that she would, if there's a lost child on Main Street, she would escort them to like the baby care center, like where you bring lost children to then reunite them with their parents, stuff like that. So she would help out lost kids. But yeah, it's just a 1900s era woman. Interestingly enough, Main Street USA is a turn of the century themed area. So it's very fitting.
It is, and she would fit in clothes-wise because of that. However, what was there actually in the 1900s? It wasn't like California wasn't like really.
No, it was probably
wasn't
just
the California we know today.
No, it was probably just farmland, if even that, if it was even settled at all.
But what I like about her story is, parents out there, if you want to lure a ghost in,
lose your kid.
Just push your kid out in the crowd and then wait patiently at the baby center. And, you put a GoPro or something on your kid. And that way, if the phantasm comes up, or at least you'll hear the kid talking to it or reacting to it somehow.
All right. So I think your advertising campaign should be spooky ass shit. Come from the ghost stories. Don't come for the parenting advice.
Well, listen, I don't have kids, and
and if you ever do, you can hunt ghosts with them. Apparently.
Well, bait.
I'm not saying it's a bad idea. Don't get me wrong. I'm not questioning the concept.
You need a bait child.
Unfortunately, mine is now 20 and almost 21 and can just find her own damn way around and would be like whatever. It doesn't really work as well for me.
Like a bait car, you have a bait child.
Right.
All tricked out with cameras.
And just see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I think about that, that's a good idea for any haunted place, because kids are supposed to be able to see through the veil easier, right? So.
And by good idea, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, listen. You raise them your way, I'll raise them mine when I ever steal some.
That's fair. Moving on. I will say that if you go to the blog post, which we're going to link to, there's video that I pulled from YouTube, security monitor video, which supposedly shows a ghostly figure walking from Haunted Mansion across the park and then actually across the water.
Yeah, is this the white figure?
Yes. Yeah, you can look it up on YouTube. I mean,
it is a very interesting video.
Yeah, obviously I want you to go to my website and look at it, but you can just go to YouTube and look up like security monitor Disneyland ghost or some combination thereof. And the video itself is 4 security monitors of different parts of the park. And you see this like white person looking vaguely figure walk from the Haunted Mansion and across, New Orleans Square to a different section and kind of walks through the park. And then something just walks across the water and vanishes. It's pretty cool. And what's interesting about that video is because it's not just, oh, hey, it's a glitch on one video. Like this obviously crosses multiple cameras in multiple parts of the park, and it moves like somebody's walking. I mean, obviously it's kind of floating and it's kind of nebulous, but the pacing and all that is very similar to what a person
really
would
does
do.
Look like if you were going to see a good ghost video, it would look something like this. There's different explanations as to what's really going on with the video. I don't know enough about the system or whatever to make a judgment on it, but it's interesting to watch anyway, like Aaron says.
Yeah, I'm not sure when it was taken. I forget, and I'm sure, I'm losing an expert point here by not remembering that off the top of my head. But yeah, no, it's kind of a cool video. And if you really like, it's definitely one of those ones that, and if you Google it, I'm sure you can find theories on one side and the other side of it's a ghost. It's not, this is what it is. But yeah, just at face value for looking for like a ghost Disneyland, it's really cool. And it's kind of convincing.
Definitely worth checking out.
So let's move on to Walt Disney World down in Orlando. So let's start with one at Haunted Mansion, because apparently Haunted Mansion just attracts ghosts. Funny that. This one is an old man with a cane. That's what he's called, the old man with the cane. He doesn't have a name or anything like that. He's supposedly seen riding Haunted Mansion late at night. He'll be in one of the Doom Buggy cars. He'll be coming around, and if a cast member speaks to him, he'll just vanish. He never says anything. He just stares straight ahead and just vanishes. And he is just an elderly man holding a cane. The speculation I found on this ghost was, like the woman in white at Disneyland, he's been around longer than the park has been around. Like some of the stories I'd heard about him suggested that there was a small plane crash on that property in like the 1940s, and he was the pilot, and he died, and he's still there. I couldn't really find any information about a plane crash in the 40s on that area.
Yeah.
I'd have to find some library and dig through like decades old microfiche, to news stories to try to figure this out. But that's kind of the reigning theory, is that he's a pilot who crashed and died around the Bay Lake area, which is Walt Disney World property, and now he's just there chilling in the Haunted Mansion. Which, hey, you know what? Cool, good ride. I'm a fan.
Yeah, there's the worst places you could hang out.
Yeah, not much else is known about him, but I thought he was interesting just because of that whole, some of these ghosts are like, hey, they're Disney ghosts, like the Walt Disney story. But some of them are like, nope, they were already here.
Yeah.
And someone just built a park, happened to be where they were, and they hung around.
And I like that maybe he was around before the park, but he's chosen to ride the rides at the park since he's there anyway.
Right. I mean, that's what I would do.
Unlike our crying boy.
Right, who just sits there and cries. This guy's like, no, what? No, I'm gonna go for a ride because it's cool.
Yeah, gotta make the most of your afterlife.
I mean, that's kind of what I look for in an afterlife, is just riding Disney rides for the rest of my existence.
Yeah.
So let's jump over to Tower of Terror. I find it interesting that at Walt Disney World, some of the ghosts are like Haunted Mansion, Tower of Terror. Like they're obviously, they're very themed ghosts, I guess. Yeah. So the story on this one is that a cast member died of a heart attack while working on the ride. He was on, so they have different platforms, loading platforms, load the elevators, and he was on what's called Delta platform, and just dropped dead. And ever since then, cast members claim that when they're doing their nightly ride through at the end of the night before they shut down, the lights might suddenly go out around them, even though on the security monitors everything looks still lit up and normal, or the music will suddenly fade in and out, or there'll be a shadowy figure out of the corner of their eye and they turn, it's gone. This is another one, and again, this is another one that I couldn't find anything about the name of the cast member or when he died or like that. It was just, hey, cast member died of heart attack and now haunts the place. There's supposedly video of it. I didn't post the video on the blog. I posted one screenshot from it.
Wait, the video of...
So there's supposedly video of this ghost.
Oh, of the ghost.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I didn't know if you were talking about the ghost or the incident with the
No, the ghost.
Cast member.
There's a video of Tower of Terror, and because they'll do a ride, like a maintenance ride through at night and all this, and there's this older maintenance guy sitting on the ride, like with a clipboard, writing things down as he rides it, and then if you watch right behind him, there's like one frame of video where it looks like a person appears, like a see-through, like spiritual, spirit person, and then vanishes. So on my site, on my blog, on that Spookiest Place on Earth post, I just took that one screenshot and posted it. And I mean, again, theories range from, oh my God, that's actually a person, to it's like, I mean, these security monitors aren't high def or super great, so it's a trick of the light, it's a double image of him. There's all sorts of obviously theories on both sides of it. When you look at just the picture of it, it does look like, yep, there's a person there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. I was actually at Walt Disney World last November, and as we were getting off the ride, actually, I asked a cast member about Delta Platform specifically, and he looked at me like he had no idea what I was talking about. I was like, oh, so was that Delta Platform we got onto? And he was like, no, why does that matter? I'm like, oh, never mind. So obviously he didn't want to talk about it, or it seemed to me like he just had no idea why I would ask about a loading platform.
Yeah. They are slightly surly on that ride anyway, though.
Well,
I mean, that could have been his, I don't want to talk about it, or I don't know what you're talking about. And that's so.
And for him, it seemed like I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I'll mention in a little while a different attraction where I feel like they did know what I was talking about. But I really felt like he was just like, why you ask me this crazy question? I have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
And you need to not be talking to me now. So let's jump over to Epcot, the world of the future. This one is a pair of young ghosts, young boy, young girl, who are often seen around Spaceship Earth right by the entrance, who run around and will chase each other, and they'll play, and they'll start chasing each other and then just vanish into thin air. They've occasionally also been seen on the ride. That's really all I have on them, all I could find, except for one consistent detail, which is the girl has long blonde hair. That one tracked across all of them. Everything else is like, oh, don't know who they are, don't know where they came from, don't know why they like Spaceship. I mean, Spaceship is a great ride, but, an odd one for two young ghosts to pick. My personal theory would be probably another example of them being there before the park was there.
Yeah.
Just because I've never uncovered anything about anything bad happening on Spaceship Earth.
Spaceship Earth always gets stuck when I'm on it. I don't think I've ever been on it where it just went straight through.
There ghosts don't like you.
Maybe. Or maybe they really like me.
Maybe they really like it. They want to stay there. That could be it too.
Don't think so negative.
When you've been stuck on the ride, has there been like a small blonde girl sitting next to you?
No.
Okay. So.
No, I never noticed.
Okay. Well, next time you're on it, you should look around if that happens, and see if there's two little
kids
running around.
Let's see. It was at Epcot. I think it was in Canada though. In Epcot, I mean. But there was an unattended child that I didn't know whose it was, and there were people sitting around, so I'm like, maybe that belongs to somebody here. But this little girl is definitely in her own little world playing. So I sat there and I was like, I'm just going to keep an eye on this child. But apparently everybody was doing the same thing, and it didn't belong to any of us.
That's weird.
But a friend of ours worked at the park at the time, and she was a cast member, so she was backstage. But I texted her and said, hey, there's a little kid out here. And she never responded, but whatever. But someone eventually came and got her, and we were all like, what is wrong with you as a parent? But I don't think she was a ghost. I think she was just a neglected child.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah.
Apparently she needed a woman in a white dress to come.
Yeah, she was at the wrong park for it.
Also, I appreciate the fact that you were like, I'd be a terrible parent. And then you're like, I watched a kid to make sure that nothing bad happened.
I'm not a terrible person. I never said I'd be a terrible parent. You said that, or implied that at least. I never said it. I'd be a dope parent. I just don't want to be one.
Okay, fair. Nope, you're right. You're right. I was putting words in your mouth when you suggested sending him out into a crowded street unattended to try to track ghosts. Moving on.
Those are your thoughts and theories.
Really? I mean, because we can rewind and listen.
No, I said that, but I'm saying whether that's bad parenting or not.
Right.
That's your thing.
I then inferred.
I told you the kid would have a camera, and cameras these days you can watch on your cell phone.
That's actually accurate. No, you're right. All right, fine. I rescind my "you'd be a terrible parent" comment. You'd be a great parent, and you might solve supernatural questions in the process. So
you go.
There we go. All right, let's talk about George.
Okay.
Pirates of the Caribbean at Walt Disney World. One of my favorite rides. It's a lot of fun. So supposedly, in the 70s when it was being built, a construction worker died while working on it. Again, names lost to time. I've heard cause of death. I've heard falling from a height. I also heard being crushed. So who knows? However, This is actually one of the most famous Walt Disney World ghosts because there was a... What the hell was that?
That was really freaky. It was just some aluminum flashing that unraveled itself.
Like just now we're talking about
Just
ghosts.
Yeah.
So for everyone listening, we just had like this weird noise in the room.
We both jumped.
Behind us. We both jumped. This is why we send little kids to do the ghost hunting and not us personally. Yeah. Anyways.
I don't remember what we were talking about. Oh, George, something about...
I mean, Haunted Mansion does say a ghost will follow you home. It's possible.
It's true.
I've ridden that ride a lot. Who knows?
Yeah.
All right. George. So this is one of the most famous of the Walt Disney World ghosts. And I actually got a lot of information about him when I was doing research because just a lot of people have heard of him and have kind of tried to learn more about him. So supposedly, a cast member will say good morning, George, every morning when they open the ride over the PA system. And then at the end of the night, will say good night, George. They do this without fail. And I've heard some they just say good morning, they don't say good night. But consistently what I've heard is that they will greet him and say good night to him. Because if they don't, then weird shit happens on the ride all day. And I actually asked a cast member, I was waiting in line, we were about to get on the boat, and we were boarding, so I couldn't really stop and talk to him, but I did anyways. And I was like, well, I hope you said good morning to George today. And he looked at me, and I got the feeling this guy knew what I was talking about. Because he was like, George, who's George? And I'm like, hey, I'm just saying, like, I hope we're not going to have any issues. And he said something like, kind of like, well, that's for us to know. And, kind of,
Yeah.
But he started grinning a bit. Like, I think he knew exactly where I was going with it. He just didn't want to say anything. Yeah. And I was about to get on the ride anyways, so.
But we don't know where the name George came from?
Supposedly it's the name of the construction worker.
Oh, okay.
That died. Supposedly his name was George, but George what? Who knows? I've only heard, like, in the 70s when it was being built. I haven't heard, like, exactly when.
Now, they talk to him, but he doesn't talk back, right?
He doesn't talk back.
Because dead men tell no tales.
Right. Nice. I see you did there.
Yeah.
Wish I thought of that one.
You can have it.
No, it's now on audio that you said it, and that's fine. So anyway,
I am a semi-professional comedian. Let's not forget.
That's fair.
Not semi-professional. I do comedy once in a while.
That's semi-professional.
I don't want to inflate myself.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, hey, whatever helps you sleep at night when you're not being pounced on by phantom cats.
Yeah.
Anyways, the reason they greet him every day, the reason they're polite to him is because if they're not, weird stuff happens throughout the day. The ride will stop suddenly, and then the ride always kind of stops sometimes, not always, but can often stop for a variety of reasons. But it'll just stop when there's no technical issues, and it'll be stopped for a while. Or they'll get phone calls from empty control rooms. Or there's a door near the exit, near the jail scene where there's the 3 pirates behind bars trying to attract the dog with the key. And there's a door there they call George's door because no matter how many times they close and lock it, it'll just open up. Like they'll come by and like, oh, that door's open again. So yeah, stuff will happen, if they're not nice to him, if they're not polite to him. Supposedly he's also kind of mischievous when it comes to guests, where if you say his name 3 times on the ride might stop. If you say you don't believe in him, like while on the ride, he'll do something to, show you he's there. I read one witness report, I'm making air quotes while I say that he was kind of taunting the existence of George early on the ride. And when they went down the waterfall towards the beginning, the boat rocked much harder than he'd ever experienced before or since. Like, somebody was rocking the boat while it was going down. And there's been, and there's occasionally been reports of, oh, I said his name 3 times on the ride and the ride suddenly stopped for an hour. Or, I said I didn't believe him and suddenly like things got weird and like things went wrong. I have tested this personally. When I was there last on that same trip where I asked a cast member about him, I, on the ride, actually talked to him and about him quite a bit, trying to get him to do something. I must have said his name, well more than 3 times. I said things like, I was trying to take a picture of one of the scenes, and I was like, smile for the camera, George, if you exist at all. And, I was kind of like, come out, George, wherever you are. If you're real, you're probably not. So I really said things trying to hit all the points people have talked about and try to get the ride to stop or to rock or something to go wrong or something to happen. Weird lights to appear on the photos that I took.
Yeah, and by the way, just speaking for the paranormal folk out there, you are not supposed to antagonize a ghost in any way, shape, or form.
You are not supposed to. And bear in mind that if the ride stops for an hour and a half, then you're stuck on that ride for an hour and a half. And with these, strangers, and you're missing out on things. So
Yeah.
I don't recommend doing what I did, but in the interest of science, I did what I did, and nothing. Ride worked perfectly. Got through, no issues. I looked at the photos that I took after the fact. I didn't see any weird lights on them or anything that would suggest that there was, a spirit. I mean, this one isn't fairly consistent. There's always a lot of stories about this one.
Yeah.
And
Do they describe what he looks like?
no,
All right. I'm going to doctor some photos.
I just put them
I'm going
online.
to put a 70s construction worker in some Pirates of the Caribbean
Basically,
photos.
you're gonna Photoshop the dude from YMCA into Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, the YMCA dude. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Just give him like a blue glow around
I'll
himself.
put him in like each scene.
right,
But not forefront. Like he'll be
like in the background.
Yeah, it'll be like a Where's Waldo kind of thing.
Like We Wants the Redhead, and then somewhere behind that is
and
is a
we're
construction
clearly
worker.
doing this as a joke, but someone will pick it up as real, and like you'll find it somewhere on somebody's blog.
Right, and
Be like, look at these amazing photos,
um,
and someone will make up a backstory as how they took the photos and everything.
yeah, no, see, I think this is a good idea. I think this is messing with people's heads, and I'm always a fan of that. But yeah, next time you're on Pirates, if you want to potentially antagonize a ghost, go ahead and say his name 3 times, see what happens. If you're stuck for an hour, it's all your fault for taking my advice at all. I'll probably continue to do that when I go on the ride, because eventually, I mean, law of averages, if he's out there, eventually I got to get it right. So if you're ever on the ride with me and it stops for an hour and a half,
Just don't get on the ride.
I'm
if you
sorry
get there
in advance.
In line.
I wear a Magic and Misadventures baseball cap at the parks. So if you see me, say hi, unless we're on Pirates, and then ask for the next boat. So these have all just been urban legends. They've all been stories. They've all had variety of details. They've all been fairly hazy. But of course, a ghost is the spirit of a deceased person. And even at the happiest place on earth, accidents happen, and there's been some real deaths that supposedly have led to spirits. And this is something I did not talk about on the blog post, just because I was having fun. It was light and fluffy, and kind of playing with like a Haunted Mansion-y style tour, writing style. And I didn't want to kind of make it something dark and too serious and too real, I guess. So this is all kind of like new content for this. But there have been, I've got on my notes, 1, 2, 3, 4 real deaths that have happened over the years, all at Disneyland in California. The first one, and probably the most, for lack of a better term, famous one, is Deborah Stone. She was a cast member in 1974, 18 years old, on an attraction called America Sings.
Yeah.
This
I heard
attraction
this
is
one.
long gone. It replaced Carousel of Progress, which was originally there, and then that closed, became America Sings, which was a similar attraction where it was a rotating. You go around.
I was going to
this
say,
stage.
that's the important thing to know, is that it works pretty much the same way.
Right. It worked in the opposite direction, though, which is kind of a noteworthy detail. Basically, you sit down, and this theater moves around this circular stage, and it was fun animals singing songs from America's, history. Side note, some of those animals, once that ride closed, became part of Splash Mountain. There you go. There's your little bit of trivia. Anyways, so in 1974, 2 weeks after this ride had opened, there was an 18-year-old cast member named Deborah Stone who was working there and got crushed to death between one of the rotating walls and one of the stationary walls. There's been some speculation as to exactly what happened, whether she stepped back at the wrong time or whether, she fell. Like, no one's really sure. And there were some indications that it was an audience member that heard screaming and then alerted someone after the ride who went in. She was pronounced dead at the scene. But since then, at that attraction, there were indications that she was still there. People would get chills, or the kind of typical ghostly trappings like chills and seeing things look in your eye. But one of the biggest things that seemed to happen was they added some new safety features that wouldn't happen again, obviously. But when people were standing in that area, when cast members were standing in that area, they would hear her voice telling them to be careful, which was a fairly consistent detail. America Sings is long gone. That's been closed for a long time. My understanding is it's offices now. I have no idea if people walk around the offices hearing "be careful" or not, or if she's still haunting that area. But my research had turned up the fact that supposedly she was still there at America Sings for as long as that attraction was there.
Yeah. In Disney World, the Carousel of Progress, last time I was there, is still there.
It's still there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Surprising a little bit, actually, that it's still there.
It's got a bit of a facelift. They just replaced the sign and cleaned up the outside and everything like that. And I'm glad it's still there. I mean, it's a throwback. It's an original, and I'd be really sad if they took that out.
Catchy tune too.
Catchy tune.
Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow.
Yeah, that's going to be in our heads for the rest of the night now.
Mm.
Good job. Then we have one in 1984. This one is, her name was Dolly Young. She rode, there's a roller coaster there called the Matterhorn, which is a big, you've probably seen pictures of it. It's a big snow-covered mountain. It's like a bobsled ride roller coaster. And for some reason, this woman, Dolly Young, unfastened her seatbelt while on the ride. One of the prominent theories is that she was riding with a child in one of the other seats and had undone hers to try to adjust the child's. Again, I don't know. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
But these are some of the stories. Anyway, she fell from the car, hit her head, fell onto the tracks, got crushed, got killed. And ever since then, people claim to have felt her presence on the, cast members on the ride. There's actually a section where the track kind of dips, which is where she died, which they call Dolly's Dip. I've read cast member claims that no matter how many times they replace the light bulbs in the work lights in that section, they're always burnt out. Or they'll walk through and they'll get chills, they'll get weird sensations, they'll hear sounds. Generally, what I've read from cast members is that when they're doing their kind of walk through the attraction, they never go through that section alone because it freaks them out. And then we have the monorail runner, Tom Cleveland. This was in 1966. This was a 19-year-old boy who thought it would be great to hop the fence and sneak into Disneyland from the back way by Tomorrowland. So basically, he climbed a fence, hopped onto the monorail track, and then started running along the track to try to get into the park. Did not see the monorail coming. Got hit, got dragged, got killed. There are reports from cast members that say that late at night they will see a ghostly figure running along the track around where he got hit. Don't try to sneak into Disneyland.
It's a bad idea for many, many reasons.
But, getting hit by monorail is probably up there.
That's up there, yeah. But I think if you get caught, it's a lifetime ban, too.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure. And then our last one, our last, actual death that may have led to a spirit is Ricky Yama. He was 17-year-old who, now, when you get on a Disney ride, any Disney ride, at any Disney park, they say the same thing. Keep your hands and arms inside the ride. Don't stand up. Just sit there, enjoy the ride. And when the ride stops, then you get off. Young Ricky here decided not to adhere to any of those rules. And while on the People Mover, which is a fairly slow ride, this was Disneyland. People Mover's not there anymore, but at the time it was. And he decided to get up and jump out of his car and basically start car jumping into other cars. In one of the tunnels, which is kind of one of the faster sections, it's dark, he slipped, he fell, and he got crushed by an oncoming People Mover car. The haunting on this one is supposedly, if the story is to be believed, yes, he actually was killed. That part is believable. If the ghost story aspect is to be believed, when he fell, he tried to grab, onto something for support, and grabbed onto a blonde woman's hair. So since that time, while the People Mover was still running in Disneyland, blonde women would feel when they went through the tunnel someone tugging at their hair, specifically. That was the manifestation of it. Again, People Mover's long gone from Disneyland, so if Ricky is still there, if he was there at all, who knows what he's doing these days. But that was the consistent story, was that blondes would feel their hair being tugged, like happened when he died. And that's all I got. That's the hauntings, many of the hauntings of the Disney parks.
Very interesting. The only problem with having you on is then I always want to go to Disney World or Disneyland. I've never been to Disneyland, but
I'm going in a couple weeks.
Yeah, but hey, before you go, something interesting about Aaron I want people to also know about is your Star Wars figure pictures.
Oh, okay. We're jumping onto this. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All right. So
I just think it's interesting, and I think people.
Okay, sure. Fun. Yeah. No. All right. So as we said, magicandmisadventures.com is my Disney blog. If you go onto there, you can find my social media accounts for the Disney blog. I'm on Twitter, and you can find my Instagram feed, Magic and Misadventures, all one word. I do have a second Instagram feed, which is what we're talking about now, which I don't talk about much on the blog, but we're going to talk about because it's fun. It's called Galactic Repertory Theater. There's underscores between the words, so it's Galactic _Repertory _Theater, and it's RE, not ER. So I work as a professional stagehand on a variety of productions in and around the Boston area. I've been doing that for years. And about 3 years ago, what I started doing was taking photos of the cast and crew members I work with on these shows, posing with Star Wars action figures. specifically the Galactic Heroes line from Play School that came out like years and years and years ago, and like these little like 2-inch tall like rubber figures make the figures look like little kids almost. But yeah, it's just literally cast members of shows and crew members on shows posing in fun ways, holding Star Wars figures from this line, and then there's like a clever, to me, caption about like early on it was just like, here's this actor posing with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it was very simple. And as it's evolved, it's become like they're part of the story, and there's this whole big like grand show happening. So yeah, so if you're interested in that as well, a little bit different, check that out too.
And the cool thing about it is, I won't name names or anything, but the thing is, he works for professional theater companies, like real deal, gets stars to come to these theaters. So there's some very interesting people that pop up on his Instagram.
Yeah,
holding these figures.
And I know which one you're talking about.
Not just one. I mean, yes, there's
that one,
the granddaddy of all of them. But even if you're a theater person, there's going to be other people that you recognize.
Yeah, and it's funny because it does run the gamut from people who are relatively unknown, who like young up and comers, stuff like that, to people that you've probably seen in movies, to Tony Award winners and nominees, stuff like that. It really does run the gamut, and a lot of different figures, and it's fun. It's this goofy thing that I started,
and nobody's like, who the fuck is this guy when you come up?
I'll tell you, there's I've discovered that the "Hi, I'm Aaron. Will you hold the Star Wars figure and hold this figure and pose for a photo?" is a decent icebreaker.
All right.
I've had a couple no's. I've actually had people say, no, that's not my thing. I'm not, I'm not into that. I've only had a few. Honestly, I've been doing this since 2014. I've taken over 300 photos. I've had 3 no's in all of that time. And one of them felt bad about it later. So 2.5. He didn't do it, but he still felt bad about it. It's funny because what it is it's just a goofy, silly thing that I do just to kind of document the fact that I'm on these shows, but do it in kind of a fun way. But as I've been doing it more and getting more into it, watching people kind of pose and kind of the stuff they want to do and kind of the interaction is actually really interesting. I've had well-known actresses be like, oh, what should I do? And I'm like, whatever. And they've like stuck the figure in their bra, or, I've had guys, put them on their hat and just like, so it's really kind of funny just to, when you're like, here, hold this, figure of C-3PO and do something. Obviously if I have a clear idea of what I want them to do, I will direct it. But often it's just like, here, hold this, and and I try to match the character, the Star Wars character, to like their personality or their character's personality in the show. But just watching them kind of do something is very entertaining to me.
All right then. So you can see all that on Instagram, and we'll post links and everything on my website, spookyas.com. So you can, if you don't remember where Aaron said to find him, don't worry, it'll be posted everywhere. And please rate, subscribe, and review the show. Share it with all your spooky friends, and I'm sure we'll think of some other. The thing about Aaron's post too, I want to mention, is that he only comes on here to talk about the spooky stuff, but your blog is not just about spooky stuff. Your blog is just about Disney.
Right. It's all about Disney, and it ranges from, it's primarily the parks, but I'll talk about the movies. I'll talk about, restaurants. I'll talk about, I'll rant and rave about things that I think are, rant and rave worthy. So it really is just all over the place. It just happens to be that this particular one for Halloween was,
sure,
I'm going to focus on the ghosts. And it was
sure. No, I just want people to know when they go there, or if they, I assume actually if they're listening to this show, they would want spooky stuff. But
right, that makes sense.
If you're just into Disney, that's fine too, and there'll be plenty of non-spooky stuff to learn about as well.
That's true. So tell all your Disney loving friends to check out my website.
Yeah. All right then. I think that covers it. I think we said everything we need to say.
I think so. I'm good.
So thank you for coming once again.
No, thank you. This is always a lot of fun.
We'll have you back sometime, and until next time, don't be afraid.